Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Divorce and Separation Coach podcast. Today, we're talking about sex and divorce, and in particular, how do you reclaim your sexuality after sometimes years in a sexless marriage? I have a lot of clients who come to me with that specific concern because they have been usually in a very unhappy marriage. Many of them say they've been sleeping apart for many years. So I wanted to dive deeper into that topic. I think it's a really meaty one. And one, I guess, of the positives that can come out of divorce is reconnecting with your sensuality and your sexuality. So to talk about this, I've invited Emma Sayle. Emma is one of the UK's leading female entrepreneurs, and she made her name launching the global female empowerment brand, Killing Kittens, in 2005. And it's got over 200,000 members. You've launched events in the US, Australia, and Europe, and Killing Kittens has now grown to an online community network with sexual empowerment at its core. Welcome, Emma. Thank you so much for joining me.
Lovely to be on. Thanks for having me.
So, as I said earlier, it's a very common question that comes up when people have been in an unhappy relationship, many times in a sexless relationship. How do they restart their sex life after all that time? How do you do it? When do you do it? And with whom?
The thing is, women, I mean, I'm, 46, and lots of my friends, I'm in, right, the average age of divorce in the UK, I think is 46, 47. And they, Women just sort of suddenly realize they've lost themselves. It's because that's what we do. We're empaths. We put everyone else's needs first. And it's very easy to suddenly, wake up 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, and go, wow, where did I go? I love the expression, remember who you were before the world told you who you should be. And it's sort of remembering that, well, what were we before we started putting, the man's needs first and then kids' needs. And so it's sort of that. I think there's that initial, well, from what I've seen, initial fear, terrified of being on their own and not finding anyone. And it's sort of that immediate kind of, well, I need someone, I have to have someone. My life
Yeah.
isn't complete unless I have a man. And it's actually, what I say to friends, it's like actually, life is a lot more simple a lot of the time without and more fun. And I see so many women suddenly, when they do when they do kind of find their feet a bit and go out and they go traveling and they go and
Yeah.
do stuff with, we're very good at the whole sisterhood, and with other women. And, I always say that, I'm destined to end up in some kind of commune at the end of my days with just loads of women in our 70s and 80s, just, having a lot of fun. Um, so, yeah, it's that. I think that, yeah, there's so many bits to it, of just kind of pausing, taking a beat and pausing and getting that thing out of your head, that panic of I've got to have a man to complete me and fulfill me and find it's sort of no, taking
So in
a
that
big step
respect,
back.
would you recommend starting first with just sex before trying to have another relationship, or do you think that they have to go hand in hand?
Well, to be honest, I say to my advice is to stay away from men. Is to
Okay,
actually
altogether.
not no don't have a rule. I think if you have rules, it's like I must not eat sugar, I must not drink, I must not, then all you think about is no. I
Yeah,
can't,
yeah,
can't. So it's not I can't have a man, I'm gonna be, staying for 40 days. It's I'm not gonna think about none of my life decisions are gonna involve being with a man, finding a
yeah,
man. And my life's decisions, all the decisions I make, just say for like the next 2 months, 6 months, are going to be made around me and
yeah,
being selfish. And I call it, being unapologetically selfish and going out and finding hobbies. Let's start a new hobby.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
let's join a club. Let's join a community. Let's go and do something. I've never tried to play tennis. I've never just doing something for you.
yeah.
Um, and I think, the main thing is finding your tribe and getting friends and hanging out with
Yes.
friends. If you feel really lonely, which a lot of women do because they put everything into, the family and the man, is one of the big things I see is they lose their friends, they lose
Yeah.
their own tribe of women, and and friend, not just women, just friends.
Yeah.
So it's sort of find them, go and
Yeah.
join, find communities, find there is something for everyone out there, and that's the joy of like the being in a digital world of
Absolutely.
finding groups, from book clubs to like knitting clubs to golf clubs. There's literally something, and you never know who you're going to meet.
Exactly.
So I would, my advice is to basically finding a man, even not having, having a fling, just sort of, but on the sex side, going, but some people are very set in there. I can't, I have to be in a relationship to sleep with someone, and that is fair enough. People, each their own. But then even with that, if that's what you're saying to yourself, I can't, oh, I could never be someone. I've just ask yourself why. Why is
Mhm.
it that you are so set on? Because often comes down to the messaging we've had as from the kids of that shame and judgment, and we should save ourselves for a man. And so actually what I find is actually a lot of women they start going, well, no, I don't want to have, I can't have sex
Yeah.
outside of our relationship. And because then actually when they break it up, it's sort of actually it comes down to the shame. And when they go, oh, sod it,
Yeah.
why are we carrying that? Why, and I always say, when they do it once, when they've had, a bit of a fling or a bit of fun once, then it's sort of, why shouldn't you be out there sort of learning what makes you tick as
Mhm.
well sexually, because
Yeah.
you don't know. And that's the other thing is sort of, we're taught early on that pleasure is the man's, is the end point for a
Yeah.
man coming, and that's it. That's what sex is. And we're never really taught about female pleasure. We're never really allowed to, really question it or
Mhm.
figure out what it is that makes us tick and what we enjoy. Because, from that late teen 20s, it's like find a man, settle down. It's
Yeah.
kind of, especially the midlife women now, we're that generation. um, and so it's sort of taking that step back and just going, well, do I really know what I want? Do I
Yeah.
know what I like? Have I, what do I want to explore? What have I thought about? Because, again, there are communities everywhere
Yeah.
on that
Absolutely.
side. Um, and just chat groups and setups and everywhere the way you can go and like, ask questions, listen to talks, full on event, do whatever. So yeah.
No, I agree, and I think that in a lot of ways, divorce is one of those very few opportunities in life where you can really reset and think about who you really are. And a lot of times, you've lost track of them at the stage where you get divorced. And so, taking the time to figure out who you are, what kind of relationships you want, what matters to you, shedding maybe some of those sexual inhibitions that you were talking about, and reconnecting with the people who really matter. So, sometimes
Mm.
it's new friends, sometimes it's old friends that you've kind of neglected, but just getting that circle back together. I completely agree. One of the things that I hear a lot is, just a fear of, I haven't had sex with anyone but my husband in 10, 20, 30 years. How do I go about having sex with someone else? It's really intimidating for people. What do you recommend in that kind of situation?
And that is where again it's that putting a lot of pressure on you. And again today, a lot of the time it's sort of the men out there, um, who you're going to have sex with are in similar positions, a lot of them. And it's kind of just remember what they felt like when they first met their partner, and with the nerves and, that, and it's exactly the same. But actually it's quite, it's quite exciting. And
Yeah,
um, and that's it. It's sort of you're not overthinking it. At the end of the day, it's just sex. It
yeah,
is, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I haven't ridden a bike for like 20 years. And, well, if you fall off, you fall off,
yeah, yeah,
but you just, kind of, how to ride a bike. It's like we all know how to have sex. It kind
yeah,
of, it's just, and look at it as a bit of an adventure, like going to a different country you've never been to, climbing a
yeah,
mountain you've never been to, and like, and just seeing it like that, going, it's going to be different, but it's going to be new and exciting and something I haven't done before. And yeah. Um, so rather than same old, and a lot of the time it's sort of, when people leave and, do you want the same sex you've been having? or not having. You haven't had sex in
That's
2 years,
usually the
and it
point.
got
Yeah.
mundane and kind of and dull. Kind of look at, do you really? Why do you want to have the same as what you know, you were having before?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point. And I think that that's what usually it is. You know, it's familiar having sex
mm,
with somebody who's, you've been having sex with for many, many years. It's not scary. It's very familiar. You usually end up in some kind of routine, and it's always kind of the same pattern. And so actually, while it is scary to start again and to feel again, like a schoolgirl, it is also a wonderful, exciting experience to discover other ways of making love and other ways of experiencing sex.
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. There's so much, there's so much to female pleasure out there that I come out with stuff sometimes. My friends are like, "What is that? Well, what is, it's sort of, it's not just a penis and a vagina, you
Yeah,
know, and your clitoris being rung like a doorbell. It's like there is way more to sex, and it's not just that sex. It, should be everything but the act of,
yeah, yeah.
it's everything. Given that most women don't actually, come from penetrative sex, it's like, why should that be sex? Which doesn't
Yeah,
really
yeah,
give
yeah.
us most women that much pleasure.
Hmm.
It's sort of everything else should be explored. And so that's it. Just, you kind of go on a new adventure, and it's the next stage in your life. And you're going to go out there and you're going to explore. And you've got one life. You've
Yeah,
got one
exactly.
life. And the other thing I found is actually, I get a lot of grannies coming up to me at weddings and stuff and loving what we do and saying they wish it was there. And the biggest regret in the over 70 women, and I've read about it as well, it's not just with them coming up to me, is that they did not sleep with more people and they did
Ah,
not have more
interesting.
sex because
Okay.
they had that ingrained, the judgment and the shame, and this is what you're meant to do, and you've got to please the husband, and that's their biggest regret. So you go, do you want to get to that point in your 70s and 80s and be one of those, one of those women? And that's their generation. Our
Yeah,
generation doesn't need to be like that. We
that's
can,
true.
explore, and there's so much out there. So there is absolutely no excuse for anyone in our generation getting to their 70s and 80s and going, oh, I should have had more sex. Because you know
Yeah.
what, you should have. And you could have.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. And I do find that in midlife, with people around me, but also my own experience, there is a confidence that's not there when you're, 18, whatever age you are when you start having sex. You know what you like, you know what you want. You're more comfortable saying what you want and what
Mm.
you like. And so a lot of women say that actually in midlife they finally started enjoying sex because they were able to be themselves in that relationship.
Yeah, and it becomes a hobby because that's the
Yeah,
thing. Midlife sex is you're not having it to have children. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You're not
yeah,
having it to try and keep a man, like you're on your 20 and kind of and please someone. You're having it selfishly as a hobby and for
yeah,
pleasure. And that's it. There is no strings attached to it.
yeah,
And by that point, a lot of women are kind of financially independent. So that's the thing. It is selfish and it is about us and that's it, and we have the power. And there's the other thing, I'm seeing, I've been married for like 12 years, but I'm live vicariously through some of my girlfriends who are divorcing and now, some are on dating sites, some are and they are being hit up on these sites and stuff by 20-year-old men. And they're like, the amount they're getting of attention, a lot of them, they're not acting on it because then they're, what I mean, we've got children older than these guys and stuff. But some of the guys, they've spoken to have said, but there's no strength, what I mean? That actually the power
yeah,
and the confidence that middle-aged women have is
yeah,
really attractive to younger guys.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's a good segue actually into what I was going to ask you next was around, self-confidence because in midlife, well, your body changes and you're not necessarily, feeling as good about your body as you did when you were in your 20s. And especially if you've been in a bad relationship, it usually really affects your self-confidence. What would you tell people who are struggling with the confidence of just being naked in front of someone else and being exposed in that way?
I would say on that, go just be naked in, find situations where, if you're a member of a gym, just go, right, I'm just going to get naked in the gym. It's like if
Yeah,
I'm having low confidence, I'm sometimes in the gym, I'm like, sod it. And it's like, and it's like really bright light. And you just go,
yeah,
or just in your underwear. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
right, just a bit, because you do it once and you just feel empowered.
Yeah.
It's sort of, a big thing about, we've seen a big increase in sort of, the midlife women coming to our events. And one of the things we see is a lot of the women, they come together on a group and they get down to their underwear and they just like being on the dance floor in their
Hmm.
underwear. And they buy
Yeah.
really lovely lingerie and they say that's so empowering.
Mm.
And so, and because they look around and everyone's of different shapes and lumps and bumps and sizes and everything, you just realize that it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that thing, it really doesn't matter. And I think, and when you're older, actually, and guys will say it, a decent guy, is that, it's the energy.
Yeah.
They're much more attracted to like a size 16, you know, woman who's got confidence and good energy than some, size 8 catwalk model who kind
Yeah.
of is shy and has no self-esteem. And it's sort of, it doesn't, yeah, it's sort of,
There was
you
a movie,
realize that. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember which movie, but there's one where this woman's saying, what if when he sees me naked, he doesn't like what he sees? And the other person says, well, has any man ever walked out of the bedroom when you were naked?
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
reality is that
That's
they
the
don't.
thing. They don't, it doesn't. Men have lumps and bumps as well. You know what I mean? It's like they're not perfectly formed, but they don't, what is perfectly formed? It kind of,
Yes,
that's
exactly.
the thing. I think that's it. Again, we're sewing, we are being brought up to compete with other women, and that it's all about beauty and size and shape. And that's another thing that we have to just shed that off. There's
Yeah.
so many layers to us that we've been programmed to believe and think that we just have midlife, it's just shedding
Yeah.
layers.
Yeah.
Mm.
And feeling that freedom of actually making those decisions now that you're less attached than you were before.
Yeah, exactly. It's like phase 2 of your life. It's like, it's like coming up from the ashes, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also you look around and when you're in that state, look at the women that have been in that state and then
Mhm.
compare how they are, how they were when they first
Yeah.
split or the husband left them, and then how they are now. And I guarantee you they will look 10 years younger. They will
Yeah.
have much
Yeah.
more energy. They will be much more happier. And that I've yet to meet a woman that isn't. And I mean, there's a few that sort of, but then they become sort of very bitter,
Yeah.
bitter,
Yes.
and don't want to do
Toxic.
anything, and just stay in the angry, bitter thing. So it kind of, yes, it's a natural state, but it's you've got to try and get out of
Yeah.
that. Mm.
And I think the point also is that it can happen at any age. I mean, I've had clients in their mid 60s, sometimes even in their 70s, leave their husbands for somebody else.
Mm.
So clearly they're having an active sex life. And I've had clients who've met somebody else after divorce, way past midlife. So there really is
Yeah.
this idea that there's an expiration date with your sex life is completely false. And there's really no end to when you can
No, there
actually
is. I
start
mean,
embracing.
there's a reason the highest the highest incidence of STIs are actually is in the over 70s.
Oh, that's
It's not in the
interesting.
20s, it's in the over 70s. So because
Okay.
they just don't care and they are just shagging, care homes are rife with it, and that's
I've
it
heard
because
that.
they've just gone, so yeah, if the care homes can have STIs coming out of their, ears, then, why aren't the midlife women out there, not having
Yeah.
STIs, but having
No, but having
sex?
sex.
Yeah, having sex.
So you mentioned online dating, but of course your company does events. Could you tell us a little bit how that works and how that might be a way for people to meet new sexual partners?
Yeah, well, we've got. I mean, there's two strings to our. It's like KK group. You've got the Killing Kittens events, but then we got the We Are X Wax app, and on that, it's the Home Sale KK community and loads of other communities, and we've got loads of chat groups on there and online workshops, sex education workshops, and things. So it's kind of, you have to be a member of that in order to come to a KK party. So it's an easy kind of baby step way of signing up online, joining some of the chat groups, maybe looking at what the online workshops are. There's body positivity ones on there, there's confidence, there's loads of different ones on there. And within the chat groups as well, you can find a bit of a community. There's
Mhm.
social, so there's just drinks events
Yeah,
where you can go for a
yeah.
drink. But then we have the full on Killing Kittens events. And so for them, it's, they're masked events. A lot of the time it's at big country mansions. We have, it's like fizz and like oyster reception, and and then there's DJs, performers. And so a lot of the time people, 50% of the people that come keep their clothes on. They just like the party. But then we also have upstairs a sort of big playroom. So if people do want to have sex, they
Yeah.
can, or you can stay downstairs. So it's not in your face. And we don't let single men in. So it's all
Okay.
about women having the power and empowering women. And that's, yeah, so they're kind of the full Killing Kittens parties. But there's steps throughout, there's an entire ecosystem that we've kind of built where, yeah, you can sort of enter, you come into the site and then you can choose sort of what you want to do in it. And then, there's a big dating aspect of it as well, the kind of
Yeah, I would
swipe
imagine.
dating app. So yeah, so you've got the dating aspect, you've got the chat stuff, you've got the education side, you've got the event side. So yeah, it's all on there.
And that's a really great way for people to meet new sexual partners, or even, as you were saying, start new relationships. It's very different to the traditional dating app or being set up kind of model.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sort of, but that's the modern world, that's the world we live in. And I think I was looking at something, the way basically, I think it's up to about 40% of people, surveyed have
Mhm.
met their partner online. And that
40.
was, 50 years ago, there was zero.
Yeah.
Online, it was all, and so, yeah, there's a massive amount now, and that's over meeting through friends and family, and the other one was workplace. So yeah, it's a huge amount. But then saying that, that's not necessarily kind of a swipe dating me. It could be, in some kind of online community. It could
Sure.
be, what I mean, in a chat, like we have big chat groups. You don't have to do the dating part. You can just join a chat group. We've got women only chat groups. We've got over 40s. You've got loads of
Yeah.
different London based. We've got different chat groups. You could just be in there and meet
Yeah.
someone, that's so that counts as online. It's not just a case of you're on a dating
That's
app.
true.
So yeah, that's just, it's how it is. And actually it we all live on our in the digital world on our smartphones, and so
Yeah.
why not be in, have some of your social life and stuff online, as long as you do move it into in real life, events. And that's a big thing
Yes.
for us. We're all about getting people to meet offline. So
Yeah.
we have the tech, which is the tools, but the idea, everything we do is for people to actually have that real human social interaction offline. So it's kind of, just see it as a tool. You've got to use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I've got, a friend recently, oh, I'll never meet anyone. I'm like, well, get online. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't want to do any dating apps. I mean, you got to. You've got to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just, you live in a village. So, how else are you going to meet? You can't sit there and wait for someone to, it's sort of, yeah, just kind of, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to get on swiping, swiping dating app. Just get on into some online communities, or, but again, that will make you go and do something different. So it's just, it's all about joining communities, and
Yeah,
that's
and you
where you're
can
going to
take
find
small
people.
steps. As
Mm,
you're saying, if you're not quite comfortable putting your picture up on a swiping app, you can start with
mm.
WhatsApp groups, things like that. But I think you make a good point that so much of our life is on our phones today. Somehow, with romantic relationships or sexual relationships, we seem to still have that taboo and that reluctance. But why wouldn't we manage that aspect of our life online as well? So I like to ask at the end of the podcast for, I guess, kind of a summary, but really in a nutshell, if somebody was to listen just to the last 3 minutes, what would be your three tips to somebody who's recently divorced and who's trying to reconnect with their sex life?
My advice would, start masturbating. If you're not masturbating, start and do it
Yeah.
every day, whether you want to or not. It just
Oh,
releases something. It just changes your mindset. It gets you in touch with your feminine, flow and sensuality. And it is shocking how many women. I mean, oh, I can't remember the last time I did. Oh no, I haven't for like months. And
yeah.
it's like it's the first step, because how you're not gonna how can you expect a man to pleasure you if you can't pleasure yourself, for
That's a good point.
starters. So that would be the first one, just to rev it up. You've
Yeah.
got to put the key in the ignition to start with. So um and then I would say, do go. I mean, it's not just about us. There are other places, but go on and look at workshops online,
Yeah.
the virtual, there's so much sex education kind of workshops and things out there, amazing ones that tell you, like, from self-pleasure to confidence to everything. Um, I would, do that. If you've thought about something and you're intrigued by something, then find what, where you can go, either go, there's workshops in real life, which is good to meet
Yeah.
other people. So you can do virtual ones, you can do in real life ones. There's like master classes. There is so much out there. And again,
Mhm.
you'll meet people through that. Um, and get on, for example, our chat groups and stuff, even into the women only ones groups where
Yeah.
you can actually ask questions and then you'll hear the chat and it kind of makes you realize actually I'm not weird. I'm not, some sex addict. I'm not, a slut. I'm not, it's perfectly normal. Um, so that, and then build your community, your tribe, and go out for drinks. You don't know who
Yeah.
you're going to meet in a bar or a pub or
True.
through friends. I say, you've got to get out there and don't go
Yeah.
out there with going, right, I'm going to find a man tonight. I'm going to meet a man tonight. You go out there because you know what, you're going out for you to have some fun, see some friends,
Yeah.
and you never know who you're going to meet in that
Yeah.
kind of capacity. And then, yes, there are the dating apps and, there are events and yeah, it's sort of, it's baby steps. It's just,
Yeah.
you've got to reclaim you, who are
Yeah.
you?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And just get out there, as you say.
Hmm.
Just go for it and explore and
And
see it
back
as a new
yourself.
adventure.
Yeah.
Well, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Emma. This was a really interesting chat, and I'm sure it'll help a lot of people who are struggling to, get back on the saddle after potentially many years without sex. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you joining me today. And have a great
Thanks for
day.
having me. Thank you. You too.